AI crypto will explode over the next weeks and months, and it's so obvious why. Off-chain, in the likes of OpenAI, they're raising funds, even though they've already got a $100 billion valuation. Big companies worth over $100 billion don't continue to raise funds because no one will invest. But in AI they do, because AI is the future, and we're seeing a huge growth spurt right now. But there's big problems with AI off-chain, and in this video I'm going to break down some of those problems and one project in particular on-chain in crypto with a token that you can buy now that could be destined to solve these issues. If it can, there's an opportunity for this coin to be able to do 100x or more. And this time I'm not just here to hype you up. And let's get into today's video. Now guys, while I get my breath back, I want you to look at this image and you're like, I've seen this image, you've shown me like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, you're right. I'm showing it to you for good reason, because I want to keep hitting you with this and make you really kind of look at what's happening to the world, okay? Not just this blockchain's going to do this and this. The whole world right now is investing money into an area, and that area is what? AI, okay? Why? Well, because AI is incredibly powerful. And you're like, yeah, okay, AI, yeah, it's going to take over the world, and then we're all doomed. Maybe, okay? But wouldn't it be great if we got rich along the way? Anyway. AI scaling issues. ChatGPT, in 2 months, gained 100 million users. Before that, no other company really was able to do that. And you'll see that the spend on hardware and stuff like that is absolutely going to go crazy. And you're like, why on earth would all this be happening? Because AI allows for huge advancements in technology. And those advancements will allow companies to continue to develop, to be able to cut costs, reduce manning, etc. And yes, that might not be great because lots of people might lose their jobs. And I'm sure people are already losing their jobs to AI, as we know. At the moment, we've seen AI go through various iterations. When you're using Amazon and when you're using Instagram and stuff, you are also using AI, okay? Because it's showing you different stuff that you're interacting with. Same on Spotify. You know, if you've ever like listened to a few songs and then the next song comes up and you're like, oh, I didn't know what that was, but I really like that song. That's because AI is getting to know your music tastes. So simply, what must we know right now? Artificial intelligence market size is destined to grow and continue to accelerate towards the upside. More investment going in all the time, more and more people using this particular technology. Now, AI is a very complex subject, and I hope to at least try and simplify it in this video, as well as talk about a project that's going to make it a whole world more exciting and different for us. Now, when it comes to crypto, I want you to think about this. If something exists already off-chain, like AI or finance or whatever else, what is the benefit of bringing it on-chain? And the answer, theoretically, most of the time should be, almost all the time, decentralization. To take things from a centralized place into a decentralized place. Now, there's lots of benefits of being decentralized. It means that you don't just have one company or one organization that has ownership over everything, because that means that the end user ultimately gets manipulated and has a worse deal, and it costs them more money, and all that kind of stuff. AI is no different. At the moment, you've got lots of different centralized organizations using AI. When you go and use ChatGPT, that's an AI under OpenAI. If you use Claude, like I do, that's another AI built somewhere else. These AIs don't interact with each other. They are just in siloed models. They can only learn from the information that's fed into them within those siloed models, and they can't interact with each other. This causes 2 problems. One, first of all, it means that all that AI information isn't available to everyone else, which is kind of unfair, but also it means this. These AIs would be so much more powerful if they were able to interact with one another to be able to learn more. And you're like, yeah, this is getting really scary. And actually, the more I talk about it, yeah, AI does sound pretty scary. But there's a project that's basically promising to be able to link all of these different bits and pieces together in a safe and controlled manner. And if you look into this picture, you might be able to clue up what it is from this little T that you can see here. And of course, the project that we're talking about is Bittensor, Tao Bittensor, okay? And this project is one of the most complex and confusing projects in the entire crypto space. And that's interesting. Basically, Bittensor is hoping to connect the blockchain with artificial intelligence and make the most of these different technologies by linking them together. Now, why is this so interesting? Well, I've told you before, within crypto, there's some weird cryptos that come out and suddenly they gain these massive followings and people get really passionate behind them. And we saw that previously with XRP in the last bull market, and that XRP army is still huddling ever closer together to feel safer about the fact they're just losing money every day because XRP seems to be piling in. But in last year, we then saw the arrival of the likes of Casper, a new blockchain that gained a huge amount of support and excitement, with new people changing their name on Twitter to Casper and all that good stuff. We've now seen that starting to arrive with ICP, Internet Computer, with one of the favourite YouTubers of the Internet Computer, Jerry Banfield, even starting to write rap battles about ICP. Although I think he did one before about XRP, correct me if I'm wrong. And now what? There's a huge host of people who've now started to figure out that AI is the place that we should be looking, and Tao Bittensor is the project that overarches all this theory. And why would that be? Well, because when we look at the advancement of AI right now, we're talking really about machine learning and deep learning. Now you're like, what does that mean? When we're talking about AI, I want you to think of this, machine learning. Every time you interact with ChatGPT, you're asking it questions like, how does this crypto work? Or how does that work? Or how does the weather work? Or whatever. For that AI to be able to give you a response, it had to have been fed a bunch of information. Huge amounts of information have been fed into this, which can cost anywhere between $3 to $30 million, which is pretty bloody expensive. And now that machine can then go and learn about that information and process its own kind of concepts about this. But there's a difference, I think you'll understand, between being able to read and regurgitate information and being able to take information and actually give a theory on it. And that's what you probably see across crypto most of the time. Most of it is people taking information and just sending that information back out without actually processing any of the information and giving you what you need back in return. Which is hopefully what I do and why you should be subscribed if you're not already. I think by now this video hopefully will take us to 100k if we're not there already. And this particular part that we're talking about right now is a whole process that needs to be managed. And this whole process uses an artificial neural network to reach accurate conclusions. Neural network, what does that mean? Well, it means basically a network of different computers that are able to think together in the same that we have a brain with neurons firing all the time. But this is all centralized through ChatGPT, therefore its learning is limited on the capacity or the amount of neurons within that network. Okay? However, if it's decentralized, there theoretically is no limitation on the number of neurons that can be connected into one single network. Then in theory, you can connect to the entire worldwide brain that can be basically able to process that information. And obviously, more neurons connecting together means a bigger brain and ultimately more intelligent. So not only are these brains limited on their size because they can't go outside of that centralized organization, but also this makes it very expensive. And that means, according to this Masari report here, that the cost of training models or training AI models is increasing 3,100% every single year. This is huge. Why is it happening? Well, because, as you probably watched in the Ether video I made the other day, of which, by the way, we're having a pre-sale, and if you want to get involved in that pre-sale, it's going to happen in the inner circle, link down below, next week. So if you want to be able to buy tokens in Ether before it even goes live at a big discount, then get into the inner circle, link down below. So what I touched on last week was this. Ether basically solves a big problem with a shortage of GPU power. There's a specific type of GPU that's used for this deep machine learning stuff coming from NVIDIA. It's like an H100 if my memory serves me correctly. And you need all this computing power. Obviously, as there's less of these GPUs available and the demand is going up all the time, that means that it's costing more and more for these machine learning models to be able to take on data, because ultimately the things that feed them are getting more expensive because of the supply and demand model. Hopefully that's simplified enough, but ultimately it proves that the market is booming. Not only that, but this is currently happening because everything is monopolized. Now, if we open it up into a decentralized world where everyone has access, it should theoretically start to bring that price curve down a bit, which is obviously a positive thing, and also give access to more learning models. The more learning models are out there, the better the overall performance. Now, recently, we've seen a big surge in AI, specifically Bittensor, and then we saw in Depin projects, the likes of Render and Akash, which I've been talking about recently. Now, there's lots of projects out there that calling themselves as AI projects, and we want to understand why Bittensor is slightly different, in fact, very different from all these others. You can see that within a machine learning environment, there's a lot of projects out there already who do specific parts of that machine learning. However, Bittensor goes through the entire process. Firstly, you start with data collection, then data storage and preparation, model training and fine-tuning, hosting models for interference. What does that mean? Okay, let's say if I want to learn to become a football coach. First of all, what I would go and do would be to go and read some books and maybe watch a few YouTube videos And let's call this the data collection. Now, once I've collected that data in my mind, I might then start to write it down and maybe make a few kind of little video notes to myself or whatever, the data storage and preparation. Following on from this, the model training and fine tuning. Now, basically, using all that information and stuff that I've now learned, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start to practice, maybe take on board like a youth team and maybe start to teach them. And if it goes well, certain things will go well, certain things don't go so well. This is the fine tuning part. And then eventually, I'm going to be like, wow, I'm pretty damn good at this. I'm now going to start my own school and teach other people how to be football coaches. Now, this is all roughly through a machine environment. The machines need to go out there, get access to all of the information. The information then needs to be stored through networks like Filecoin, Arweave, which I've talked about before. They will then feed that information into the likes of Jensen, etc., to be able to fine tune and tweak this information to be able to prepare it and use this information correctly. And then once that model has been created, once that information's there and ready to use, then it needs to go out into the market. Bitensor does all of this. So all of these cryptos you see here, Bitensor basically stacks all this together and goes through the whole process itself, which no one else out there is really doing, which makes this very cool and ultimately something we should pay attention to more. Now, something else that's really important is a difference between training and inference. Training, as we've just talked about, is much easier for us to do training, okay? It's much easier for us to go out and read books, watch YouTube videos, and take on that information. To actually take on that information and then go and make a decision with it. For example, I watched these 10 different YouTube videos about these different crypto coins, and then I went and read all this information about the upcoming market trends and all that, and now I've kind of decided that maybe it's best to invest in this one and this one. That's my inference part. Training versus inference is a very big thing to overcome. Okay, most new projects aren't really dealing very well with this inference problem, and that's probably what separates the successful from the less successful, because this takes a huge amount of money and a huge amount of time to be able to do properly, and it's what ChatGPT has managed to do and is perhaps lagging still for the likes of Bitensor. So simply, let's start to think about how Bitensor works against how OpenAI works. OpenAI basically takes the information that it's been fed and then goes into a ChatGPT computer program and then gives you the output. That's why if you go to ChatGPT right now and you say, should I invest in Bitcoin today? It's not going to know the answer. It's also going to give you some bullshit about why it's not allowed to give you that information and stuff like that. But ultimately, it's only held within that very narrow field of vision. Bittensor's not like that, because through its decentralized nature, it can get its input from the real world. Now think about Chainlink like this, where it has oracles reporting on what's happening in the real world. Imagine you're watching a football game and you have multiple people within the stand reporting on the score of that football match. The score is more likely to be accurate because you have multiple people feeding that information in. Think about this with Bitensor. Instead, though, of having these oracles of people just watching the football game, you've got AI models that are learning this information and they're starting to put their information together, and they're then going to feed that into the output. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, this is the last technical image that we're going to look at. Promise, okay? Because I know it's probably getting a bit too heavy. It's definitely getting too heavy for me. So, what we can look at is this. Basically, Bitensor has a bunch of miners out there, which are machine learning nodes. Remember, like the individuals sat in the stand around the football pitch? And these nodes are then compensated by the blockchain nodes or validators. These validators are basically saying, yes, this information that's coming in is correct, analyzing that information in order to be able to feed it into the network, making sure that the information is coming from the right place and not any bad actors or people trying to feed in wrong information. Now, in order for all this to work, the miners that are watching that football game are all basically being paid in Tao tokens to be able to provide that information. The validators are then saying, yeah, this person should be trusted or that person should be trusted because they've got good knowledge of this football match that's going on. They're then incentivized with Tao tokens to be feeding back on the best information that comes from the miners. Now, as you would expect, Bitensor is obviously doing a huge amount of work. Like lots of crypto projects, we find ourselves looking at this as an investment opportunity with a mixed idea. The idea is brilliant. Very, very powerful, very, very exciting. Now, there's upcoming subnets going on with Bitensor, where for your specific demand within the world of AI, you can go to use their different subnets. This is also very cool because it means that you can get a bespoke model for use on your website or anything like that. Now, here are some of the early projects that are being put onto Bitensor. However, watching a Bitensor video from Coinsider, who makes some pretty good detailed technical videos, he was talking about these projects not really being anything near like what we see already from the likes of ChatGPT. However, in terms of potential catalysts that could see the price of Bitensor exploding, it seems to be that neural networks are the one. Remember that being like the world kind of think, if all of these different neural networks are connecting to one another and thinking together, then this is what will make Bitensor so much more valuable than anything else out there. But obviously it's a difficult thing. Now, Bitensor is backed by some of the biggest names in venture capital, such as GSR, Polychain, and a few others. And it's going to likely continue to hoover up money. It's going to be a very money-hungry project. That's why we're seeing already the likes of ChatGPT and others hoovering up cash. Now, from a tokenomics perspective, Bitensor, very much like Bitcoin, which goes through various halvings, has like a 256-year life cycle, and something like $21 million in tokens. Which means when we come across to coin market cap and we look at the circulating supply, you're like, oh, well, it's only like 30%, so that's really shit. Okay, this is something that lots of people do, and I think people use this to try and sound like they know what they're talking about. Fair enough. But actually, what we need to understand is this doesn't mean that tomorrow 71% of these tokens are going to arrive on the market. Remember, 256 years. These tokens, after the next halving event, will not really see much increase at all for at least the next sort of 10 years or so. So at current market cap valuation, which is $1.8 million, we know that they're doing something that could blow OpenAI out the water. And then to go full circle, OpenAI is trying to raise new funding, and it's already got its valuation at $100 billion. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Well, off this valuation, you would anticipate that $1.8 million to being worth around that is somewhere up towards the kind of 80x level. Now, if OpenAI goes and raises another like tens of billions of dollars, then you could anticipate that this is more towards the kind of 100x remit. Is it possible that Bitensor can go and do 100x in this bull market? I think it's very bold to think that it can happen, but there's very few cryptos out there with the $1 billion range plus that are looking to do 100x right now. And I do think that Bitensor, even with this kind of current circulating supply situation, bearing in mind that it's going to be drawn out for years, does have this opportunity. But it is but just an opportunity. Okay, it's not guaranteed. Nothing in crypto is guaranteed. It's very, very ambitious. They need to continue to raise funds. It's going to be a very difficult, troublesome market. I don't think it necessarily can happen in time for the top of the bull market. So potentially towards 2030 and beyond, maybe we could look at this occurring. You also have to wonder whether some of the big names in the game are going to allow Bitensor to come and compete with them like this. There's going to be other problems with mass adoption. There's going to be other problems with decentralization, etc. But the idea is effectively what we'd be investing in. Now let's jump across and look at the chart right now. Something interesting that I've been talking about. Now it's currently Wednesday. I'm aware this video might go live probably tomorrow on Thursday because I'm going to be away for a few days. We can see that we have been kind of slowly coiling towards the downside in lots of coins because obviously we saw Bitcoin having that cool off. Now Bitcoin currently sat at 40k. I do think that it's currently going to bounce around here and probably won't see a huge amount more downside, but I could be wrong. If it does take more downside, then you're looking to somewhere around the 32 to 33k remit. And then from there, that's where I would expect the bounce. So whether we bounce here or there, but it's notable when Bitcoin starts to recover today, the first projects that we see recovering along with it are AI projects. That's very key. Because remember, the next iteration of the bull market, we're going to see this phase 2 disbelief rally, front runners with great on-chain fundamentals, growth will take the charge, okay? Basically, key narratives will start to take the charge, of which quite clearly AI is the key narrative, which is kind of like also supported and backed up by Depin, which I've talked about a lot on this channel. Now, we did have that kind of significant pullback into this kind of buy zone area down towards $219. And yeah, Bitensor is kind of expensive considering where it was. If we look back to October, where it was just 38 bucks. And people who were early enough to get in back there will be very happy because they were up around 8x at one point. Currently, they're still up around 5 or 6x. But personally, I want exposure to AI. So anywhere, considering that kind of valuation potential that we've got, somewhere around this kind of $235 level would be quite healthy. If we do get that pullback in Bitcoin, I think that's going to basically give us an opportunity. But we are looking now that we have had this break beyond this kind of falling wedge pattern. We broke up, we retested, we're now on the move. Next kind of area of resistance around 324, next area 386, and then we're kind of into clear air, and I think that Bitensor is going to have a killer one. Now, I'll be clear, I've invested a little bit into Tao Bitensor, not my entire net worth, but a good couple of percent, and maybe I will start to put more allocation in there as time goes on if we get further dips, etc. Now, guys, I appreciate that there is a huge amount of information I've shared in that, and I get that for some people that won't be technical enough, and you will need to continue to go down more technical routes. And my channel is more about giving a broad brush experience, allowing people who are new and don't understand crypto so well to get involved in more technical projects and hopefully have them broken down to a more simplified version, because I'm a simple person. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could subscribe and hit the like button, and I will see you very soon in another video.